into the light, Caroline.
Get the word!
Well, good morning, everybody. Look at that. He's still jamming out to the theme song. I'm sure that's what all of our fans do. They're just like,
bang
get the
your
song's
head.
Over. I got to watch these two chuckleheads. I was getting into it. I was going to have a rave in the morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, in San Francisco, and myself on the Las Vegas Strip here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are doing it. This is a Bid Nerds. What we do is we whittle down all the most interesting cars on all these automotive enthusiast auction sites. We whittle them down to just a few, the most interesting ones. We nerd out about those cars, and then we make predictions as to what we think those cars will sell for when the hammer hits the sound block at the end of their respective auctions. We always start out the show by going over yesterday's predictions, just to show how poor at this some of us
Who wants
are.
to do that? That's so boring.
Man, my partner Michael Deeb is not excited about going over yesterday's predictions because
I quit.
he's out. He's going to get the he's going to get his fist because it's time to smash that like
This
notification
is just
button.
insane, man. Well, my God, dude. All right, so my cousin Mark bought me this Hulk fist so that I could smash the like button. When you come out here for Radwood, I'll give you the other fist because it's a pair of gloves, and you can use it because you just smash your partner every day. I got my ass handed to me yesterday. I was so looking forward to this week, starting on a holiday. I picked all the cars. I thought I'd have an unfair advantage, and I don't know. I think this game is kind of skewed because you just mopped the floor with me again, dude. Jesus.
It's rigged. It's totally rigged in my favor.
Totally rigged.
It actually is rigged in my favor because you always have to go first. If you've ever watched Price is Right, the guy that goes first is always screwed. And that's you. So At some point or another, we've discussed it over and over and over again, and we will do it. We're going to change
I'm making a Black Their Fascination t-shirt that on the back it says JP's Lackey that I can wear to all the events so people can recognize me in a crowd. They're like, hey, look, it's JP's Lackey.
I would really, if this was a fair fight, I would stand no chance. We have to level it out somehow.
All right, JP, what car do we want to start with? Was it the Turbo, the X50?
We did the Turbo X50. That was the car of the day, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
That was at least the first car. So, yeah, let's hit that.
Yeah. So yesterday was 4th of July observed, so it was a bank holiday. All the auction places took the day off except the professionals, Bring a Trailer, and the Bid Nerds. So we were on yesterday, and we only had a selection of BAT cars. So on BAT, shockingly, was this 2003 Porsche 911 Turbo. It was like, JP, God, it was like 29,000 original miles, like really low miles, 6-speed manual. But most importantly, this had the X50 performance engine package. So taking the motor from like 420 horsepower, adding 30 horsepower to it by tuning, and bringing the total up to 450 horsepower. And the torque also goes up. I think the torque on this is also around 450. So this becomes a beast of a car, perilously close to the first edition of the GT2 motor, but still maintaining the all-wheel drive. Now, ceramics and sport seats are all optional on this car. You don't get all the rest of the accoutrement that you get with a GT2. But from just a pure value standpoint, these have long been a steal. They are not a steal anymore. Although you and I kind of overdid it on this one. I thought this car might make it up to not quite 90,000, but I thought 87,000 was realistic to bring this car home. You were more conservative and took the under just by a couple grand at 85, and your intuition was correct. Our car made it up to $80,000 where it sold. But you have to understand that just a couple of years ago, you could have bought this exact same car for 50% of the money. I kid you not. That's like legit. 2.5 to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost 9 years ago, for a long time, this would have been a $35 to $42 or $3,000 car all day long. and now we're seeing this car bring twice as much money. What do you think of that, JP?
You're absolutely right. I mean, geez, even GT2s in the 996 variety were like in the 50s and 60s. It was nuts. These cars were darn near worthless. It's nice to see that this car did come with the original stock stereo and stuff like that. Look, this car is one of those cars that, the 996 platform, we talk about it all the time. It's a little scary to get a low mileage car because there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done on the non-Metzger engines. The M96 engine has a lot of little quirks. This one really doesn't. You got to get the cooling lines pinned at some point. It's not going to be something that you even really need to do soon. That's something that's really an issue when the car is somewhere in that 60, 70,000 mile range. And it's not a hand grenade. It's not like the IMS bearing. So the 996 Turbo really is one of the best Porsches of all time with the power, the styling, the looks, the way it drives. I mean, this is just, even at $80,000 with 21,000 miles, this is a guilt-free sports car for years to come. You can buy this and just enjoy it, drive the heck out of it. And it's probably going to be, for the most part, relatively problem-free. And you don't have that hand grenade waiting, that dagger over your head like you're always worried about with bore scoring and IMS issues in the naturally aspirated one. So, yeah. $80,000, sure.
We talk about this every once in a while. We talk about one car that could do everything. I mean, this car will get you into almost any Porsche event. This car will get you on any rally. You could take a weekend trip to LA with your girl in this car. You could daily drive this car, and you could track this car. I mean, and this car would excel at all of those things except carrying luggage. I mean, that is it. Like, that is this car's only Achilles is, and again, it's got a back seat. You can just fill the back seat with soft bags. So you're not you're not completely paid. It's not bad. But I mean, like, and that we're like drunk. That's the nitpick, is that, you can only put soft bags in the front and the back seat. Okay, big deal. I'll take it. Like that. This car is, I can't say enough nice things about it. And when you look at the 993, the last air cooled compared to the 964, and you look at the 964 compared to the G body, each was an evolution of the previous one. This car was a revolution for Porsche, with not only the water cooling, but all of the styling and the fit and finish of the interior, the HVAC system. This was a major departure for Porsche. And this was one of the last ones of like what would you call it, JP? Like a 5 or 6 year run. This was one of the last years. So they had worked out a few of the kinks. This is basically a Gen 2 of the 996. Really nice car, still a great value at $80,000. I love this thing.
Hey, look, you're right. When you talk about being able to do all things, I mean, my first water pumper was a C4S, so it wasn't a turbo, but it was the same exact shape, right?
Cool car.
That was, 12, 13 years ago or something like that. My wife and I, when I bought that car, we immediately took it on a road trip. We drove it all the way down to here, Vegas. We went to Arizona and visited family down there, and then we went to San Francisco. We brought the dogs. Our dogs are much smaller than yours, and we had all our stuff. And me, I can bring a bag. It'd be good to go for weeks. My wife was there, so we had extra pillows and hair dryers and all the things that go along with that. And we're still married, so we survived it. This really there's not as much room as an SUV, but there's plenty of room for stuff. Great road trip car. Okay, there it is. We've talked a lot about this car, but
nice car, man. Great car. You and I both would love that car for sure. I'd hang on to one. Okay, Pontiac Solstice. The 2006 Pontiac Solstice was 855 miles on PAT. A couple of interesting things to note before I give you the result, JP. The original MSRP on this car was $25,000. Our car had less than 1,000 miles in it. It's the 4-cylinder version of the car, manual transmission, rear-wheel drive. Basically a Miata fighter, and Pontiac, the guys at GM basically said they bought an S2000 aiming for that if they could make something similar to an S2000 for less money, they'd have their Miata beater. You say that they might have come close because the dynamics of the car are fair, and I'll give you that. The styling and from a marketing standpoint, even the Pontiac brand itself was killed off. So commercially, I never saw this car as a success, even though there's probably a bunch of them that were put on the road. And who knows, maybe the owners that paid full pop for these cars were happy with them. I just, having owned an S2000, I would never look at this car as an alternate to that. I'd want the most amount of performance in my reliable little Japanese 2-seat roadster. So I'd go S2000 all day long. This car only makes 177 horsepower, so it's not going to beat an S2000 at any competition of speed. That being said, it's a lot less money at 25 grand. So I thought this car with less than 1,000 miles, being in sort of pristine condition, might make it close to 20, but not quite there. I said 19. You thought this car and this market could bring it there, so you said 21. Our car sold for $23,900, so that's your second win of the day, but not quite up to MSRP. It didn't bring original sticker. Close. Admirably close, but not quite there. So are you surprised by that result? I think you kind of saw the writing on the wall with this one. I would say you're not surprised.
I'm not surprised. That's really the number. I mean, look, it's got so few miles, and it's a rear-wheel drive sports car, and it's a collectible, really. There's people that want to collect this.
Oh.
I don't want to collect this car. You don't want to collect this car. But there are people that actually like Pontiac.
Oh, hideous interior, JP. Come on, that's one of the worst you've seen. Come on.
Okay, you know what? I disagree with that. I don't.
Oh my goodness! What?
I don't like this interior. Once again, this is all relative stuff. For a Pontiac, that's probably the best Pontiac interior of all time. It's pretty minimalist. Look, there's not a lot going on.
The design elements are there, but the colorway on this is barfable. Absolutely barfable.
I got you. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
If it were all black,
this
is not bad. Look at that.
Yeah,
it's
this
not
were all
bad.
black, that'd be a much better car.
I like the oh shit bar on the passenger side of the cockpit there. I mean, it's actually fairly
Cayenne,
well
right? 951.
Yeah, and the short shifter throw and everything. You say that this car was, their target was the S2000, and I got to think that the 6-cylinder version would have been that. Not that it would have been a beater of the would have beat the S2000, but I think with more power, you've got something there. This car would have been the version that would have been for everyone else that didn't care about the performance, which is most Pontiac people.
All right, let's go over to BAT from BAT.
Yeah, and let's not talk about a Pontiac Solstice again for a very long time.
Promise kept. I promise. Okay, 1984 Porsche 944. This was an early car, JP.
Yeah.
With the original. I don't know what we call it, but we always talk about the original dash with like the aluminum face and then like the little piece of carpet by the shifter. Those are the Gen 1s, the 944, and this car is that.
The official term for that is Jake from 16 Candles Dash.
Did Jake from 16 Candles dash for all those?
Yeah, just read the manual. If you pull out the little book in there, it's very clear that that's what that is.
Yeah, and you just have to ask her. I know you were barely lucid when we made love, but did you enjoy it?
That was rapey indeed, but that was in the Rolls Royce. That wasn't in the 944. He was a sensitive date rapist. Jake was the he was just like, I want a piece of
none of this stuff would fly today. None of it, like the stuff that we were brought up on. Anyway, JP, this car had, I can't remember, really low miles, like 20-something thousand, I think. Also. It's just weird because we haven't seen normally aspirated 944s break the bank. And man, this car, did you buy it? Like, this is a ridiculous. Did you see the number?
I saw the result later and I was so shocked. God. I was like, dang it, why did I buy that?
Yeah, I think these cars were in the $30,000 range when they were in the early 80s. I thought this car might not break 20, but would get there. Again, I bet 19,000. This time you took the under at 17. And again, you guessed correctly because our car sold for just $14,000. JP, would you rather have that car or your $14,000? I bet. Take that car all day long? All day
long. I am kind of glad I wasn't watching the auction site.
That's the deal of the day, right? That's
if this actually has 23,000 documented miles, it's hard to tell on 944s because they have a 5-digit odometer on these early ones. It's so stupid, Porsche. Yeah. But that said, it really does appear to be that few miles. And even if it did have 123,000 miles, if it were maintained properly with the clutch or the water pump and the timing belt being done, this car still has another 100,000 miles left on it. But if it's only 23,000 miles, talk about a bulletproof, survive with the cockroaches kind of car. These things, this might be one of the most reliable Porsches ever made.
That's crazy.
It's a great looking car. I do love I joke, but I do love the Jake from 16 Candles Dash.
It used to be
hideous to me, but now I kind of want one. No, I totally want one.
Yeah, it's kind of old school and it's kind of cool like that. So I'll give you that one. And as much as we thought the I don't know, whatever. I just think that's a great deal. Like 14 grand for basically a brand new 944. I would take that all day.
I
That'd be fun.
cannot figure
And
out
handle,
why 944s haven't come up. I mean, Lane from DWA drives one. Bradley had one. I mean, there's so many cool people in the car community driving these around and proving that they are
loving every
cars.
minute of it.
I just what a bargain.
And they're also the ones that aren't crying about the values. They don't it doesn't bother them that they haven't gone through the roof like everything else has. But JP, we saw, I mean, similar to this car, we saw an 84 or 83 Alpha GTV6 with about 165 horsepower. Similarly low miles, like 29 or 39,000 miles, bring nearly 40 grand. Yeah. What gives, people? Why isn't this car there? Is it because it doesn't have the cool desert driving video that guy had on his lot? I mean, that's not worth $15,000, but like it surprises me that these cars aren't worth more. I agree.
You bring up a good point, though. This car was poorly represented. I mean, awful photos, no romanticism to them whatsoever. They're just snapshots, and I think you're always leaving at least 10 to 20% on the table if you don't present the car well.
If not more.
Like throwing it out there. And what did you say? The crooked license plate just drives you nuts.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, this car, a 944. We've even seen like S2s and turbos not break 20 with fairly low miles. So
there was one here in the Bay Area that we looked at, JP, right after we looked at that Alpha. It was dark gray with a black and tan interior, and it was an S. It was a 944S in the Bay Area, and I thought that car was going to bring almost 30 grand. It didn't even break 20. I got to get one of these before they do go up, or I'll be kicking myself. Sure. All right, let's move over to the 84 Bronco. Another strange lot. JP, this car had 4,000. It would look like documented miles because the 5-digit odometer only showed 4,000 miles, but they listed it as true mileage unknown. It did have an accident with another car on the Carfax from 2006, and the selling dealer says there is evidence of paintwork. But other than that, this car looks to be in very nice condition. At least it looks great from the photos. As far as condition, it doesn't look all used and beat up and whatnot. Interesting colorway in the black with the red. You made some very interesting comments that I think were really valid, that as cool as this car looks on the knobby tires and probably or at least slightly lifted, that if this car was sitting on stock rubber at stock ride height, this car would have a chance to bring more money. It didn't seem to dissuade the bidders on this car. JP, I said 24, and I maybe was a little surprised you took the over at 25. Our car sold for $29,000. If all the money for an automatic is 35, this car did pretty good, right? I mean, would you have expected a lot more?
I think 30 would have been easy if it was period correct. I think because everything else was. The interior was unmolested, and the nice dashboard and all that stuff, and that material, that cloth material, does not survive. It does not age well. So the fact that it's been sat on for all these years and is not all tore up is just that really makes this something special.
It doesn't even survive the sun very well. Like the sun could ruin that interior even if you didn't put miles on it. Like that's a car
you go. Being in Portland, you're not going to see any sun, so they're all right with that. The carpets are clean. I mean, everything about this thing really does appear to be ready to roll. And Broncos are hot right now. I mean, a super clean one can bring in the 50s. So at 29, I think this is a bargain, and you could bring it back to stock or leave it the way it is and just drive it and enjoy it.
Let me ask you about the drivetrain. This one has the bigger motor, the 351 5.8 liter V8. Is there a premium? Did we see a premium being paid because of that motor, or does it not really matter if you get the, whatever?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to remember if this era came with a 6-cylinder. I know that that engine's great. The transmission is not. The automatic transmission will need a rebuild about every 40
automatic
miles. Yeah, it's garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, they just break constantly.
Yeah.
And luckily they're not terribly expensive to rebuild because it's just an old Ford transmission. So you're not like, you say something like, oh, you need to replace or rebuild the transmission. If you're a Porsche owner, you're like, oh my God, that just makes you, soil your pants. But in this, it's like a couple of grand. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't get
what's a scarier
what's
a scarier proposition? Finding out the gearbox on your air-cooled 911 needs to be rebuilt, or finding out your kid got accepted to a Catholic school?
Either one's going to cost you. All right. I
right,
like
JP.
our 80s theme from yesterday. What else did we have?
All right, JP, not an 80s car at all. In fact,
Yep.
this might be one of the wildest cars we've ever looked at. And as funny as it would be, we were teasing about trying to squeeze Solomon into this little Wolf Racing Cars GB08 track car that is located in Pahrump, about 5 feet from where Solomon keeps his Mazda Miata, so he can go to Spring Mountain Motoring Club. I think it'd be pretty funny with no cameras on to watch you and I squeeze into this car, because I bet this thing, as much as we just kind of bang on about it having a narrow market, is probably one of the funnest things you could do with your clothes on. This car is just full race car specification. You know, you're talking about carbon fiber monocoque, carbon fiber aero body that probably offers 3G or more cornering. It's got center lock wheels and slick tires. It's also push rod suspension. This is very exotic for the amount of money that's being spent here. But the drivetrain is a superbike. This is an Aprilia RSV. It's a V4 Aprilia 1000 motor that's probably pushing out close to 200 horsepower. Easily 185 horsepower hitting the tarmac. And this thing, I mean, JP, look at it. I'd be surprised if this car weighs 1,100 pounds. That could be a sub 1,000 pound car, because there's no passenger seat, there's no radio, there's no air conditioning, there's no sat nav, there's no sunroof. It's you and a helmet, or if you're really stupid, just goggles. But probably one of the funnest things you could go do a few laps on, and then you got to climb out of it again. So I mean, there's a lot of compromises being made. But for those that have to do the clip apexes for fun, if that is your jam, this is your car. Our car had sold earlier in the year for $68,000 on BAT in February of 21. This ad was poorly represented with no video. I still think that kind of held it back. Also, the previous transaction, this guy didn't even keep it a whole season. There's just something weird going on with this lot. So I thought it would bring 50 grand. JP, we have nothing, no reference point for this car. So you just said, I'll go closer to the previous result. You said 65. Our car sold for $54,500. So this guy took about a $15,000 bath, $13,000 bath to unload his car. There's no way to say whether that result is surprising or unsurprising, because we have nothing to compare it to. But a really neat car for those who love that.
Man, gentleman racing on the cheap. I mean, that is just as exotic as you get it. How awesome would it be to throw some lights and a little windscreen on that and take it down the strip? I mean, it just looks like an Indy car or an F1 car. I mean, it's just bonkers. Yeah. This has got to be fun. I gotta wonder though, why would you? I mean, an Aprilia engine, I mean, that's just so exotic. Why not go with a Hayabusa engine or something Japanese that's going to get the same horsepower and you can actually get parts for? Because there's a lot of those. There's that whole circuit of cars that do that. What is that called?
Yeah. So the Hayabusa is 4-cylinder inline, and they go across the frame. At least the way that the crank comes off it to turn the chain, right? The sprockets and stuff. I have to think, JP, that it's a Hayabusa being 1,300 cc's, that a V4 Aprilia probably offers superior packaging to get it in between the rails on this monocoque. So I imagine they went with that because of the V4.
They're not the
Ducati makes the V4 now.
Well, yeah, but that's also fairly expensive from an Italian. I mean, but Honda makes one. They've got their VR I mean, it just seems like an expensive exotic powertrain.
Honda's 200 horsepower 1000 cc engine is 4-cylinder inline. Honda doesn't make a 200 horsepower V4, and so I think that's what it is. Packaging and performance. You got to go Italian. I think that's it. Now somebody might step forward and remind me of a bike I'm forgetting, but I think if you want a V4 and you want 200 horsepower from a liter, it's Italian, one way or the other.
It's going to be Italian. All right. And it's going to cost you a couple of cappuccino to keep that thing rolling.
So I got that one. That was my only bright spot, that little shit box right there. And I'd paint my car. I wouldn't leave it carbon. But there you go. So you got 4 wins to start off the week to my one. I got a lot of catching up to do.
All right. Well, we got a lot of Porsches today, so your Porsches, and you might have the opportunity to let's
smash
see if we can. Yeah. So why don't you guys do that? Smash that like button, subscribe, hit the notification. It's really important that you have that notification button hit, because we are a live show. We do this live Monday through Thursday at 9:00 in the morning. And listen, the YouTube is not so good about letting everybody know that a new show is there. So you got to have the notification button hit so that it lets you know if you go just visit our channel and look at our page. A lot of times our video isn't there yet. It takes a couple of hours for YouTube to populate the show that we shot at 9 o'clock and broadcast live at 9 o'clock. Sometimes it doesn't show up for people till the afternoon, which is silly, but we don't own YouTube. So hit that notification button. That'll let you know. That'll get you a link directly to the latest, most fresh nerds. And then go over to the auction platforms that we talk about today. And in the comment section below the cars that we talk about, let everybody know that you heard about the car on Bid Nerds, that Bid Nerds said this is a car of the day. So let the other nerds know we need to expand the nerd herd and grow the nerd nation, because you are part of that, you nerds. All right, let's get to the first car of the day. Pretty much has to be, I mean, if someone's selling a Singer, that's the car we have to talk about first. And there it is. As it turns out, PCAR Market has another
JP,
How is this possible?
in less than like 6 weeks, I mean, we're not even talking 2 months, PCAR Market has brought 3 Singers to market to their online auction platform. Now, we can critique how they run their business, but this is impressive. I don't know that RM Sotheby's has sold 3 Singers, and I certainly haven't seen them on BAT. So quick, tip the cap, the flato brimo to PCAR Market for having the client base that are willing to, transact their Singer with them. That is impressive. This also, of the 3 that we've looked at, JP, this is probably my favorite. This is a 1991 964 Porsche 911 reimagined by Singer. Now, Singer names all of their cars usually after the hometown of the person that the car is being commissioned for. So this car is called the Greenwich Commission, and I believe that means that it was from Greenwich, Connecticut. This car is painted GT silver and has what we used to refer to as a deep red oxblood leather interior. It's got kind of racing bucket seats. It's got a Momo prototipo and all of the fit and finish that come with the bespoke Singer cars. That is absolutely extraordinary. Feast your eyes on this car, and what you see is a car that looks like, almost a 1973 RSR, but with the drivetrain of a 964, and then all the modern day things that you'd come to expect, like real excellent air conditioning and sat nav, and all the things that come in this car. It's just bonkers. No sunroof, flat roof, 6-speed G50 gearbox, upgraded Olin suspension, 17x9 Fuchs front wheels, and 17x11 Fuchs rear wheels, and then Brembo calipers. I mean, this car is just extraordinary. The motor's punched out and rebuilt by Ed Pink, a famous engine builder in Southern California, and he does all the motors by hand for Singer. So your normally aspirated 3.6 liter motor is going to make 400 horsepower. I mean, that is basically 997 GT3 specification in a car that looks like a 73 RSR, and will probably whip both in a contest of speed. Although most people just take really beautiful photos of their Singer, this is a really cool car. Now, some Singers do it for me and some don't. Oftentimes with the Ferrari, oftentimes with the GT2 RS crowd, and oftentimes with the Singers, it is proven time and time again that money doesn't buy taste. But JP, I will tell you that whatever this car sells for, it's going to sound like a steal to me, because I think this one is really pretty. I love the silver on the German car. I just think it looks correct. I really like this car. So if this thing's going to break $1 million, I'd say absolutely. Let me just give it to you real quick, JP. Last night, our car was $875,000 on 8 bids. And this morning on 11 bids, our car is up to $902,015. Weird thing. So it's got 3 hours to go, but there's action on the car this morning, the day of close. So I send it over to you. What do you like about it? And where do you think it's gonna, where do you think the ceiling is on what I think is arguably the prettiest Singer we've seen?
I can't disagree with you on the prettiest thing. This really might be one of the most beautiful cars I've ever laid eyes on. I mean, this is just so dang gorgeous. That 4-liter engine has got to be. I never gotten a chance to drive one of these yet, and I can't wait for the opportunity. I'm sure it'll come up at some point. But to own one of these, whoo! you're gonna have to scratch a lot of a lot of ducats together to man. How many couches would you have to flip over the cushions to scrounge up the change for this thing? It's just, and usually exotic cars to me just aren't worth it. The big question to me is like, at what point is Singer just going to stop taking orders for cars? I mean, and just be like, look, you can't get one. You just, you can't. We'll put you on a list, and when we have an opportunity for you to order one, we'll let you know. Like, what is it, Roof or whatever.
But that's they've been there for a few years, JP. I think this scenario that you're describing, I believe, is how they've been conducting business for probably the last, like, since you and I have known each other, last 4 or 5 years. Chris Harris drove one of their cars coming over from the UK and drove one up. They took him up Angel's Crest, and he made a beautiful video about driving his dream car. And he, I love listening to him because the way that the English describe a car, they use words that the Americans would never like. Oh, look at the scrumptious lines and its beautiful gearbox. Yeah, it's really, they fawn over the car. And Chris is one of the best at it. And his production crew puts together a pretty decent video to boot. He loved this thing, and I think when he's in England talking about this car, this no longer is an American market car. This is a global car, and I believe since then, Singer's been running on about a 2 or 3 year waiting list. And our friend that even better than I, Rod Emery, he's been operating on a similar thing for a similar time. So as long as you can remember Rod Emery telling you it's 2 years to get in line and 2 years to get your car. Singer's been doing about the same thing at a much higher price point.
It's my understanding that Singer is taking orders. That and I know that that's the case as recently as a year and a half ago. They're taking orders. If you go in there and write a check, you're on the list.
Right, but that list is 2, 3, 4 years long. That's not the describing.
Point. It's not what I'm describing at all. What I'm describing is Roof will not take your money. They'll just say, we'll put you on a list and we'll let you know when you can give us money. Whereas Singer will take your money on the spot. That's the question.
I have a theory with that, and I'm not trying to pick on you in this, but I think Roof has been bought and sold like a half dozen times. And so I think Roof won't take your money because they might not be here in 2 years. They might be in receivership, and then it becomes like a nightmare. And so it's not that Roof cars aren't popular or that Singer cars aren't popular or Singer cars are not popular enough. I just think Singer will take your money, and then you're on a 2 or 3 year waiting list. Rod Emery will take your money. You're on a 2 year list to get the money, and then you're on a 2 year list to get the car. And then I think with Roof, I think, you kind of have to
isn't the point. Forget Roof isn't the point. I think there are makers of cars that will say, we're not taking your money. And I think Singer is one of those that should probably do that because, I mean, at this point, if they, like 2 years ago or 4 years ago in your scenario, if they said, okay, here's 2 years, here's money, wait a year or two to get to put it on the list, and now you put your order in, and we're going to make your car. That's 4 years ago. These cars were $300,000. So they were taking orders for $300,000 cars. Why would they bother doing that if they're going up and up and up? I mean, oh my gosh, so leaving money on the table.
A quick scenario: you scratch the lotto and you're multimillionaire now, and you want a Singer. If you want a Singer that looks like this, it's a 964, which is about $100,000, and then it's like a $450,000 to $600,000 car today. And I don't think you're driving your bespoke Singer for any time before now and 3 years from now. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a 2 year plus waiting list at least, if not worse. And now, and so all these old Singers that were 250 to 300 to 400 grand back in period are transacting for $1 million because you're basically skipping the 3 year waiting list to get one, and that's why the values of these have gone nuts.
But you're making my point. My point is that if Singer took money 2.5 years ago for a car, that means they sold it at 2.5 year ago prices, and they're delivering a car that is now worth $1 million 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years later. Why would they take anybody's money at all unless they are like ready to deliver? Because Singer just lost $700,000 on that transaction. Why wouldn't they just basically make the cars and charge someone the price? Say, all right, we'll take a deposit and we'll charge you for that car for what they're worth when it's time to hand it to you. That would be an interesting model.
So Metzger worked with now I can't remember who it is. It's like TWR or somebody in it's a famous English racing team. So Hans Metzger worked with them, and they are now providing motors for a version of the Singer that's super hot rod. So it's 4-liter, and now it makes 500 horsepower, and it's basically a Metzger engine. And so Singer will now sell you, at least they offer like a $1.5 million version of the Singer that's like the ultimate performing car. And it's very modern on the inside.
And when would you get that car? You would get that car.
Yeah, never. Yeah, I mean, like
in 3-4 years, right? And
At
so
least,
what's that car going to be worth in 3 or 4 years? It's going to be a $4 million car. So that's my point. It's like I feel like there's companies that like Ferrari, right? Don't they have that whole thing where you can buy their like special wishes? I know they don't call it special wishes, but you can just like give them a pile of money and they'll make you whatever they feel like making you, and then charge you for what it's worth when you actually get it, and you just say fine because you're. I mean, isn't Singer at that point? Wouldn't people say fine? I'll pay the money for a deposit now to pay full price in 2 years when the car is delivered, instead of this buy it low and then get delivered a car that's worth way more later.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's fascinating market, and it's the incredible success story. And these guys started in a dusty garage in Southern California. You know what I mean? And they hand beating every one of those panels. I love it.
Where is this car going to land? Who's getting a steal today?
Well, I don't think this one's going to be steal. JP, I'm going to go 1,100,000, and I think it sells. I think this one's going to sell. It's just got broad appeal.
1,100,000.
Yeah, we looked at 2 cars before, and I think one of them was like turquoise, and another one was blue. I think this silver's got a broader appeal, and for the guy who has everything but doesn't have one of these, I think he's going to pay for it. And I think I don't think they're going to wait for this car to hit the deal tank. I think it sells in its organic auction at 1.1.
I agree with you. I think right now is about as hot a time as you can sell something like this. We're running up. It is now car culture time. Car week is coming up in Monterey in just like a month and a half or so. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Now is the time that the people that want a car like this are going to go and get it. Assuming someone buys it and drives it. Maybe someone puts this in the garage and just wipes it down with a diaper. That would be sad. But I'm going to go at $25,000 over that. I'm going to say 1,125,000 because I think that's what that first one that PCAR market sold for. No. Didn't they get?
I don't remember. We'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go a little over and because I'm with you. I think this is, and maybe I'm bidding based on what I would spend if I had a gajillion dollars, which I don't. So this car is not coming in my garage. Deeb, if you buy this car, can you let me drive it?
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely.
Just once.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay, good, cool.
Take it on a rally.
Now I feel
Take it on a rally.
We'll make a video. Okay. So that is just an ultimate car, but there's some other pretty badass cars that are not going to cost you quite as much money. What else we got on this list today?
Let's look at the Ferrari. Look at it. Here's a car that's got probably similar performance.
You want to save some money? Buy a Ferrari. Said no one ever.
and probably similar head turning, because I like to say, I think there's a few Singers that pass even Porsche guys by that don't quite recognize that it's a real Singer. You know what I mean? Like, so, but this Ferrari, this car is not driving by anybody that loves cars that's not going to turn their head and look back at it. What I'm talking about is a 2005 Ferrari F430 Coupe with 14,000 miles, offered out of St. Paul, Minnesota. Our car has a 6-speed manual transmission and super low miles. This car was also optioned with the optional Challenge wheels, these sort of BBS Challenge looking wheels, which are really cool. It does have steel brakes, it does have standard seats, which is to be norm. But if you basically look at 430 production as having only 5% of the cars with manual transmissions, you begin to understand how rare this car is. Ferrari only made, in this period, probably 5,500 cars total for the year for the entire globe. So when you think only 5% of the 430s had a stick and it's in the US, this is one of just a handful of cars. So really rare, and we love to talk about them. Now, last night, JP, on BAT, our car was at $160,000 on 13 bids. But since we've woken up this morning, this car has had action. In fact, there's had action since we started the show. So with an hour to go out of St. Paul, Minnesota, our car is up to $194,000 on now 19 bids. So for sure, this car, I think, is going to break 200 grand. The question is where, and the question is, would you, who absolutely adore black cars, if somebody gifted you this red Ferrari, JP, how long would you own it before you go? I'm either going to wrap it or trade it for a black one because I love it so much. I want to keep it forever. This is probably one of the best driving cars. 500 horsepower, John. I mean, this thing is amazing.
Can you get a black one like this? I mean, did they even make one?
Yeah.
I mean, a black,
Yeah,
black
I know,
on
right?
black.
Yeah.
Look, I wouldn't care. I love red on something like this, a Ferrari. Let me just say this: there is no Ferrari made today, or really in the last 10 years, that I would rather have to drive than this. That includes Enzos and for whatever, just all of them. None of them have a manual. This is the last of them, right? Was there anything that had a manual past this?
They made 4 Californias or 8 Californias that were in Europe that had stick shifts.
Really?
2012, and that's like the youngest car with a manual. I think the last 430 was 2009, and I'm not sure that they made a 2009 with a stick. So when you look at this, like 05, 06, 07 with a stick, you're talking about the last generation of manuals. That's it.
Yep. So this car is definitely the car to own. I mean, would you rather have sure, I'd rather have an F40 or something like that. But this really is the most modern, best Ferrari, I think, that's possible to own, and hell yeah. And it's just crazy to me that this isn't a $500,000 car. This car will probably come in for less than a new GT3, and you're rolling in this Ferrari. Oh my gosh. I was at the gas station yesterday, and I looked over and I saw a Ferrari parked there, and I realized it was our friend Samir. I was like, "Hey, Samir, what's up?"
Oh, man, the good doctor, Samir. Yeah. He's a good guy.
He used to be the doctor for Pebble Beach, the official Pebble Beach doctor. So we invited him to be the physician for Vegas Auto Fest this year.
Oh, that's very sweet.
September, if you're making plans, guys, be in Vegas for Vegas Auto Fest. It's going to be big this year.
Nerds will be there.
Yeah, this car, man, yeah, this is one of the few cars that I would say, I want this more than almost any Porsche. But I'd still rather have the Singer, but the Singer's 5 times as much money. So with this car, this is almost a bargain. How much is this going to go for?
$225,000 today, JP. I think the writing's on the wall for this car to have a great flurry finish. Love the wheels. I think they make the car. I like that the interior is plain tan. It doesn't have like stitching and red piping and all the silly crap that most Ferrari owners do when they build their car. And so $225 for a sub 20,000 mile car that doesn't need an engine out or even a timing belt service. This car has a timing chain. 500 horsepower, 6-speed. I'll just go on and on and on. Stop me now. 225, baby.
You sold me. I'm going big. I'm going 250. I just don't know what else you get for 250. It's this or a GT3 manual, like a late model one, a 2019 or something like that. And for 250, you can get a Ferrari for 250.
If this car had ceramic brakes, which is a pretty low take ratio, 5% on manuals, I'd say ceramics is probably like 20% of the cars, maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 had ceramics. If this car had a stick and ceramics, I'd say 250 is realistic. But I think this car, if it goes over my 225, I still think it stays in the 230s and I will win it. But I just don't think you're going to see 250 without one more cool option, like either ceramic brakes or super rare racing carbon buckets, which were available, but nobody took them. If you found a coupe stick with challenge wheels, stick shift, ceramics, and racing buckets, I think you'd be looking at your $350,000 car, because that's a unicorn. They exist, but there's maybe 5 in the country or something. That'd be a really rare car in any color.
Nice. All right, what else we got today? We got some other pretty cool stuff. Let's
go up and look at this 1972 BMW Bavaria. This is a really unusual early sedan for BMW. In essence, it would have been their 7 Series, but as the cars grew in the 70s, it's closer in size to a 5 Series. What we're talking about is a traditional 3-box design that BMW was just kind of nailed. They can make a 3-box design somehow look sporty and with purpose. And this twin kidneys and the 4 headlights, I'm just a huge fan. You have to understand, JP, when I was like well, let's say 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, my dad drove a BMW 528i. So on all those formidable, can't wait to get my permit, can't wait for my dad to let me drive around the block down at grandma's house and, get behind the wheel. All those fantasies happened when my dad was driving a car that looks similar to this. So these cars strike a chord with me. Now, our car is offered out of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. It's showing 14,000 miles, but it's listed at true mileage unknown. It's not my favorite colorway. This agave green with the tan leather doesn't do much for me, but they did swap out the original wheels for some cross sort of mesh, sort of BBS looking wheels. I think they look okay on the car, but the car looks to be in really spectacular condition. This car looks super clean. I don't know if it's been restored or if it's just a survivor, but it looks to be really, really well kept. It's a 4-speed manual transmission, and it powers a very simple 3-liter inline 6 that BMW sort of hung their reputation on until they really got a foothold and started making more exotic stuff. But to find a car from this period in this condition is rare indeed. And JP, would you believe it if I told you that with an hour and a half to go, our BMW Bavaria in green tan is already up to $51,000. To me, JP, this is a $15,000 car. So to see one in this condition is unusual, and to find the BMW people coming out of the woodwork to fight over this car is even more remarkable. I'm really glad I chose it because I was shocked by these numbers. What do you think of this car, and then what do you think of that number?
The colorway and the trim and the details of this car make me think, did Singer make a BMW? I mean, this green and orange combo color combo is
cognac.
So Singer, right? I mean, that's just, and the weave of the carpets and the weave of the leather trim and the thing that Singer does, they go back on these cars and they find everything that was made out of plastic and they redo it in metal. And you look at the trim in the back of the little door or the little pockets on the back of the seats, and you've got this metal trim that's going around. They would never make something that would be a chrome piece of plastic nowadays, but that's probably a piece of polished aluminum or something. Look at the carpets, the how thick that carpet is, and how you can just smell it, right? I mean, it looks brand new. The metal rivets, look at that seat. This bright orange kind of this basket weave baseball leather thing that just doesn't look like it's ever been sat in. That looks like a Singer interior to me. And the trim pieces on the dash.
Praise.
Look at the stereo inside in the glove box. It's like a cassette player in there, and the little clock. Look at that cassette player, the Beck cassette player that's sitting on a hunk of wood, and I'm sure that's the way it was delivered in the glove box. That's just hilarious. And then you've got the stereo, you've got the gear shift lever pattern printed on the dashboard. It looks like a vinyl sticker, but I'm sure that's a paint stencil from back in the 60s or 70s whenever they made that. I mean, this thing is just, oh my gosh, I'm just gushing over it. This looks like it was hermetically sealed. I love this car, love the color, love everything about it. I could see why you have a romantic, nostalgic memory of this car. I never was around anything like this when I was young, and I don't know what I would have done had I were. Where is this car going to land if it's at 50 grand already? That number doesn't sound out of line to me.
Couple more stories for you really quick, JP. So friend of the Bid Nerds, our dear friend, one of my old buddies, Yuri, has one of these, and his is also a manual. Now his is like a sort of a cream beige, and forgive me, Yuri, I can't remember the color of your interior. I believe it's like a cream beige with also sort of like that black dash and then a light interior, if I remember. And he's done, Rafi sort of helped him put that car together, and they've done just a few little touches to make that car sit right and look right. And he takes it on rallies and loves that thing. And I forget, shame on me, but I think these are called like B2s or B3s. I forget what the nickname is for this generation or this platform for BMW. I think it's the B3. Now, when my dad had that 528, that's kind of the car I learned how to drive on. It also had a 4-speed manual and probably the same motor as this car. Later, when I was in my 20s, my dad did own a Bavaria, and he just kind of bought it on the whim. He found it. It was silver with a dark blue leather interior and a black dash, but that car was an automatic. And I got to drive it. It was like my daily driver for a few months. And I really enjoyed the car. I thought the car, the greenhouse is beautiful and all that sort of thing. So to see one now, even in this condition, already up to $51,000, leads me to believe that we're going to set a new high water mark for the car. Believe it or not, JP, not only is the car at $51,000, but it's on, are you ready for this? 35 bids on BAT. So I'm just gonna follow the trend and say that this wave is gonna wash all the way up the beach. I'm gonna say $65,000 today. And then hopefully this brings a lot more of these early BMWs out of the woodwork. For whatever reason, JP, as much as I love BMWs, I'm not a fan of 2002s. So if this result brings more 528s and 535s and Bavarias out of the woodwork, I'll be happy, because I love early BMWs, just not a fan of the 2002, which where the market is flooded with those. So bring on these cool cars. This was a golden age for BMW, and I love to see it. So 65, JP. Am I crazy or am I genius?
This is original paint?
I suppose. I don't know. I've never really found that out. You keep talking, and I'll try to tell you.
I'm trying to look at the trim pieces and stuff like that. It kind of appears.
It looks restored to me.
Yeah. I mean, well, but the interior is so nice that it makes you go, yeah, it's like almost impossible to make the interior look that good unless you completely redo it, which maybe they did. I don't know. I'm going to bet the under on this one. You said, what, 65?
I bet 65. Yeah, it's at 51, and like I said, it got bid overnight. I'm not going to go much
lower than that. I'll go 63 and just say you're right on, and I think it's going to go 5 over or 5 under. It's somewhere. It's going to be 60 something. Whether it goes high 60s or low 60s is the big question. I'm going to bet low 60s, because as cool, as beautiful a car as it is, there's quite a few options at that number. So, but we'll see what happens.
Whichever one of us is right, if this car, like, it's already at 51, so Yuri's dancing in the streets, but if this car gets up into the 60s, Yuri's going to be doing cartwheels, man. He's going to lose his mind. Well, he'll be very happy he put the money into his car, and he owns a 3.0 CS or a CSI that Rafi is redoing for him. So he's going to have a pair of really sweet early BMWs. So
Yuri, I'm going to be in town next week, so
can I borrow the car?
We need to film some cars. Listen, we are excited to see Yuri and all of our friends in the Bay Area for Radwood coming up on the 10th. That is that's this Sunday, right? That's like less than a week away. No, it's not even Sunday. It's Saturday. It's this Saturday. Yeah. So we will be there. The Bid Nerds will be there broadcasting. So make sure that you, if you're anywhere near the Bay Area, that you come up and visit us and say hello while you're at Radwood. We're excited to hang out with all of our friends there. Just a couple more cars to go, a couple more Porsches. I assume we're going with the 996 here?
Sure, let's do it. So it's a 2003 911 Coupe, JP. So this is the second gen of the 996, and it's just a C2 Coupe in Pompano Beach, Florida, with a whopping 193,000 miles on the odometer. The IMS has been done on this car. The car has been treated to some coilover suspension and like an air filter and a few other little knick-knacky things. I think they did a muffler delete. So that you can see in that photo right there, JP, the car is lowered, probably sounds good, and it probably rides correctly. The IMS has been done. So it's just a high-mile 996 C2. Now, you used to be able to buy a low-mile 996 C2 for like 20 grand, but this car is already up to $18,000 on 11 bids. What do you think? Is there still value left in this, or would you say the 996 was such a problematic car that if you find one with 200,000 miles, you should walk away? If the IMS has been done, does this not make it just a tremendous value for the 911 world?
No, I mean, it's got almost 200,000 miles on it. This is the problem with 200,000 miles on this car, is that when the engine does let go, it's gonna let go. It's gonna be gone. You'll need to replace the engine. You know, if you with like an SC or a Carrera, like your car or something like that, 200,000 miles, no big deal. What you're going to have to do, you'll have to rebuild it, you know, at some point, maybe just a top end, maybe a full rebuild, and it's going to be expensive, but that's money in the bank at that point, and that engine is good to go again for a long time. This engine, when it goes, and it's going to go soon, look, the good news about this 996.2 is it should let people that have these with more reasonable miles on them breathe a little bit more easily, because we always hear as 996 owners that you're going to have a bore score and your engine's going to blow up, or you're going to lose that IMS and that's going to be the end of it. You're just that like what I said earlier when we were talking about the GT2, it's that dagger over your head. The GT2 doesn't have that dagger. These absolutely do. So if you've got one with 100,000 miles or 80,000 miles or 120,000 miles and you haven't had a bore score issue and the IMS hasn't failed yet, it's probably not gonna, and you could probably drive it pretty much problematic. You'll have to replace all kinds of other stuff, but for the most part, this car is going to be a good sports car. You get 200,000 miles out of it like this one, but this one can't have much left in it. It's just not. And when it goes, it's going to go and it's going to be gone, and it's going to be a 200,000 mile car, and you're going to be sitting there going,
and a replacement motor
engine in it. Yeah, I mean, it's like, so if this were a $13,000 car, this is something like Hoovie, would have bought you on Hoovie's garage. I bought the cheapest 996 in America, and he got something for $6,000 and it had 200,000 miles on it. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You're going to drive it for a little while, it's going to blow up, and you're going to dispose of it. This car, you're paying $20,000 for this? No way. I mean, it's a ticket. No, this, as much as I like it, there's no way this is worth anywhere close to what this is already bid at. Even though 996s are going up in value, this is just DOA. It's dead on arrival. Who's going to pay this much money? Someone. What do you think? How much is this going to go for?
19,000.
Yeah.
I didn't think this car had a lot of room left in it. It's on 11 bids at $17,998.
And you think it gets up to what, 19?
19, yeah. I think another grand and it closes.
I'm going to go 19,996 because, yeah, it's going to be right in there. I'll go just a little over because somebody's going to be like, oh, I mean, it is a coupe. It is yellow. If you did have an engine laying around, this might be a good one to put in once it does go, but it does look rough. Anyways, okay. All right. Really special car, the last car of the day, huh?
Oh, this is great. Look at this, JP. I'm sure you've never seen one of these. It's a 1984 Porsche 911 Carrera M491. So the caveat is that this car is in Quebec, Canada. But all the good news is that this car has less than 60,000 miles on it. The odometer reads 57,982. It's black with tan, with a black dash and black trim. The car has air conditioning, but the M491 package is what makes it special. This is one of probably 400 wide body turbo look coupes with air conditioning. So just a great car. Car has been treated as some H4s. JP, you'll notice the sugar scoops have already been omitted, and they put on the H4 headlights. It does have a slightly different front air dam that sort of integrates the fog lights so that they're more flush mount, and then there's like an opening to probably cool the air conditioning unit, and then it's been treated to some really hideous, at least hideous on the G body. They're aftermarket 18-inch auto art 3-piece wheels that are probably beautiful wheels on a later model car. I think those wheels would look great on a 996 or a 993. I just don't think they look right on a G body. They look too modern for the age of the car, so they don't look period correct to me. But a clean Carfax report, beautiful condition. Love the black and tan, especially for you, buddy. Momo steering wheel on there, just a really nice car. I own one. I think they're absolutely fantastic. This one looks to be in really nice condition, and I think it would be pretty easy to put it back to stock. I think the wheels are included in the sale. The wheel spacers and a bunch of other parts that have come off the car are all there. So whatever's been done to this car to make it fun to drive can be undone to put it back to stock, and the consignor has gone to great lengths to catalog and photograph all those pieces so you can see what you're getting in the lot. So JP, we've seen air-cooled 911s on the rise. I don't think this one being in Canada is going to hold it back because I think it's pretty easy to bring it in. There's a lot to like here. Despite this car looking a little funny, I think it's really close. It's very close to bring it back to what a purist would want. So what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, having the original parts is definitely going to help this. It would have been interesting to see this lot go through without the original parts, because it'd be a really good kind of litmus test. I don't know if litmus test is the right way to put it, but there's the original hood and the original wheels, the cats, all the stuff that he took off. It'd be interesting to see the difference in value, because we've seen a few 491s come to market fairly recently. And okay, so there's some numbers, and then here's one that's got a bunch of aftermarket bits. All right, what's the difference? Because I like that front bumper, but I wouldn't do that to one if I owned one of these. If I had a stock one, I wouldn't change the bumper out. I'm with you. I wouldn't. You're absolutely right. These wheels are not period correct. They definitely belong, like a 964 wide body. That'd be fantastic. The dished out thing would look great on this, but not on this car. Yeah, but I don't think I hate it as much as you do. But this car really has a lot of potential, and so easy to just go back to the way it was from the factory. So where is this car going to land coming out of Canada? Like you said, it's going to be a little bit of an issue, but not much, because it's old enough to pass all the...
Yeah, so it was on $66,000. It was on $66,000 last night. It's at 67 this morning. It has just an hour to go out of Quebec, Canada. I would think if this car were in the States, it would break 90,000, but because it's not in the States, I don't think it will.
Why do you think this one would break 90? But because we're only talking about like a $3,000 duty to get this over, right?
I do. But it's kind of a hassle, and I think some people will be like, I don't want to deal with that. Like I do think that's, for a lot of people, we're around cars all the time, and we see friends bring cars over. We've been working with God, and we've seen them import cars and export cars. But I think for the just sort of the layman enthusiast, I don't know that if he doesn't understand how easy it is or what it entails, then the mystery would prevent him from going. So I think the fact that it's in Canada narrows the audience for this car. I just do. I believe that on some degree. But I think the colorway is attractive. I think the low miles are attractive, and I think that it's an M491 is attractive. So I'm gonna say high, but not quite 90. So I'm gonna go $87,000, which is about another 20 grand.
Yeah, boy, that's tough. You're right where I think. I'll go just a little under. I'll go 85 and say that the Canada because the 491 is a rare car, and it's my preferred of the wide body air-cooled cars. But turbos typically get a lot more money, and we're seeing turbos of the same era going for about that. So are 491 cars now officially worth as much as turbos?
Remember we did that granite green one that had really low miles that brought like 125, and then we've been looking for like another 87 turbo to compare it to, and we have one teed up this week. So we're going to look at a red 87 turbo with very low miles to see what the high water mark is, and I predict that turbo now is going to answer the call of what wide bodies have been getting. I think that turbo is set to break 150 grand. So we'll look at that in a few days, and we'll talk about this platform and era for Porsche again. But 85 is a good bid, JP. I think one of us is going to be really close.
And I'm going to tell you why I'm taking the low bid. And because it was like, I was like, do I go a couple thousand over or a couple thousand under? I'm going to tell you right now, it's because it appears that the air conditioning is disconnected. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't work if you put a belt on it, but there's something about that being disconnected. Was he doing that to get more power? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But, pull the thing out and lose the weight. Did he just not want to go through the trouble? It's just weird that that's not connected. That seems a little chintzy to me. If you're gonna leave the pump in there, put the belt on it and carry a big knife in case it freezes up so you can cut it in GYX.
In GYX, JP. So JP, we were driving to LA for a toy and literature show in LA. We were leaving Vegas, and mine locked up, and my car was really running bad, and so I happened to have a knife in the trunk, and JP cut my belt in pitch black. Like I don't even think we had a light on it. I mean, we did it in the dark with no moon out in the middle of the desert. And man, JP, after you cut that belt, my car ran so good. It was like 20 horsepower.
When
that.
we were, I was climbing around underneath your car. If anyone's ever driven from LA to Vegas or the other way, about halfway point, like in the most middle of nowhere part of the entire trip, is a place called GYX. It's
outside of Gene, right?
Yeah,
or not
it's
Gene,
way outside of Baker.
It's way outside of Baker. Yeah.
Yeah. So Baker is like that one kind of like outpost in the middle of nowhere where you can stop.
Yeah.
It's got like the biggest thermometer in the world. And so it's an exit past that going west. And it's just like there's nothing out there. And it's the middle, and I'm rolling around with the flashlight, climbing under the car and looking around trying to fix, because we had no idea what the problem was. It was making an awful noise. It was causing your car to stutter and just do all kinds of.
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I thought I
we were in
created a
trouble.
motor. I thought I like swallowed a piston or something.
Oh no! I'm like, that can't be anything like that. Let's see, is there oil all over the place? No. Okay, well that's good. Sorry.
Nope.
But later I found out, and I'm a huge bug phobe, right? I am so like I hate insects so badly, and we found out that GYX has the highest concentration of scorpions per square foot than any other place in the world. And I'm rolling around on my back underneath his car in GYX. That was a dumb move.
That was awesome.
Hey, we got you out of there. It was all good.
The car never ran so good. That's hilarious.
I'm shocked that you left the AC pump in there after that, but we did live in Las Vegas at the time. So.
I live in Las Vegas, yeah.
All right, guys, that is an episode of the Bid Nerds. Thanks for hanging out and nerding out with us, because that's what we do Monday through Thursday on the Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Excuse me. We will talk to you tomorrow. Again, hit that subscribe, like, and notification button. Check out our sponsor, GYX Customs. That's GYX _ Customs on the Instagram, and you can get yourself one of these really cool trick bespoke bracelets. Like how nice that is. And they'll match your bracelet to your car or your watch or both. They even have paint to sample beads to match cars and watches. Damn badass. You need, for all the cool car stuff that's coming up this summer, if you're going to Monterey Car Week, you have to get yourself a GYX custom bracelet. No one else will have it. You'll be rolling around the Quail eating surf and turf with Adam Carolla and all the other fancy people, and people are like, hey, what's that bracelet? I don't have one of those. You're like, yeah, you've got a $200,000 watch, but I have a badass bracelet that matches my car, and they won't have that. And you'll be like, what you got? That's right. Get your GYX _ bracelet today. All right, guys, that's it. That's a show. We will see you tomorrow.
Get those words!